that Jonathan grabbed her, plopped her up on his lap, and did whatever he did in her ear. And I think as someone who was, I've had experience with SA as well, and I couldn't imagine having that experience in a public setting. I also couldn't imagine having to continue to exist like nothing happened. Like you could see she looked like she wanted to cry after the whole scenario ended. Um and I wish like in that moment there was more protection for her, and I keep using this word protection because I feel like we don't see it enough in this show. But like even when Tommy introduced the pajama party, him saying this like, "Oh, it's time to like get into the bed with these ladies, or like see how these ladies look in the bed." What is with the like over sexualization? I don't get it. It's so early on. We barely know each other. Why are we so sex craved on the show? The producers are not doing a good job like setting parameters. Tommy's dropped the ball a long time ago. Like, let me just say that. I don't like sometimes I feel like he's half asleep when he's talking. He has dropped the ball. But there are just there's no boundaries. There's no like let's slow it down, let's pump the brakes. Um so yeah, I felt bad for her. I felt bad for Alexis. It was so cringy. It was like I'm watching someone get harassed on TV. It's just I didn't like it personally. And I think going forward, Ready to Love is challenged with the tasks to either recruit people who you really, really like run through them with a fine tooth comb, and you can kind of dig deeper into their intentionality, because people are slipping through the cracks. You have people who acted like they haven't had sex in 30 years coming on the show. Like if you have to come on a show to get laid, you have a bigger problem than not finding love, right? So yeah, all in all, I was uncomfortable with the scene. I don't think going forward they need to do any more events where like it's getaways or what have you, until there's some real connections and deep bonding being done, because it just looks like a freaking orgy party, or I don't know. But that was my that was my thought about the whole scene.
I think Jonathan went way too far for the level of connection that he has with anybody. I think he deliberately set out to do that, push the boundaries of see what he can get away with one of the ladies, and she was uncomfortable. I think she only went with it because of the surprise, um, but because it wasn't someone that she really thought she had a connection with like that. Definitely not at this stage. So he went way too far, um, and he just don't have the awareness to even have cared how she felt in that situation. So yeah, that was a very bad move in my opinion from Jonathan. Um, I agree that there is sexual undertone and sexual conversations taking place. That happens every season, but you do those things in a manner which is cordial because it's going to be received the right way because the person's basically thinking along those same lines because you have that chemistry. If you don't know if you have that chemistry, then that's way too far. Like you don't even need to touch nobody. But I said earlier, like there's a certain gent that got eliminated, and I'm sure there would have been problematic behavior if he was at this pajama party too. So yeah, I think Jonathan went way too far with that, um, and I think it may even cost him later down if how she feels in the ladies' lounge is expressed, and he's been giving off certain vibes in phone conversations and things like that. Yeah, like he's gonna be down there.
I just want to say, and I was really hard on Alexis last week, and I do hope that she learned a lesson from this situation because how quick lessons do come. But I even watching that as a woman, I felt like that was awful. And I felt bad for her because I feel bad for any woman in that situation. I did quickly go back to her last comment and think about Deg the irony. But regardless, I really just do not like when men feel like they can just kind of take over your space like that and put you in situations where you're just that uncomfortable and have to figure out on a split second what you're going to do or how you're going to respond. It's just very inappropriate. And I do put a lot of it on Tommy because he set the scene for that situation and the producer set the scene for that situation, and that's what they wanted. And that's what they got. And it seems like women are always falling victim to, yeah, like Tyra's world, like the boundary pushers. Like that is what constantly happens. And I definitely feel like, if you don't think that was a big deal, it's just kind of weird. If you think Alexis deserved it because of the dumb stuff she said last week, that's also pretty weird. And if you're trying to judge her split second reaction, also very weird. But I do hope that she learns from her last statement that there is definitely not cool not to be a girl's girl, because you're going to need, or you could need, other women to back you, whether online or in person, when you're also victimized. So you shouldn't be such a pick me, because you women need to stand with women. And just like I didn't like how she didn't stand with Koshia last time, I'm going to try to stand with her on this time. Like, that's just not appropriate way to invade somebody's space. So I hope she learns that. And I hope Jonathan, I don't even hope anything for him. I don't think he's gonna learn. It just seems like there's no type of consequences for their actions. This is just weird. Even LaRon talked about it wasn't a big deal in these comments. Weird, gross. They probably all think that way. Weird, gross.
Okay, for sure.
Well, the only thing I would say is, unless he whispered in her ear, "Is it okay for me to put you on your lap?" I don't know. There's no world where this is okay. And we talked about it before when we were talking about Lamar's comments. I think men, as we just have to do a lot of work around consent and really understanding what it means to be sexual in any way. Even, what's his name? Alonzo's comments about that game, and he's saying it's not sexual. It's that he still has a lot of work to do, because if you're gonna equate kissing a woman and choking her, it's not sexual. That is still a sexual act, because guess what? If you did it and the woman pressed charges, it's called sexual harassment. It's called sexual assault if you did those actual acts. So it is a sexual act you're describing. Sexual doesn't just mean intercourse. So we got a lot of work to do. I want a lot of our fellas, and listen, I'm not going to say this information is widely published every single place, but as we are in 2024, men got to do the work. And we can't just shirk things off because she smiled. We can't just shirk it off because, oh, she told me to do X. You need to ask, and you need to make sure she is comfortable with what you're doing, especially and we have the power, right? We have the strength, but we need to use it wisely. And that means wisdom. And if you don't act with wisdom, you make poor decisions. And when you make poor decisions, people get hurt. So I think it's super serious. And I think anybody co-signing or trying to sign off on any of this without having information, again, I said if he whispered in her ear and said, "Hey, baby girl, you mind if I put you on my lap? I'm about to put you on my lap on this table." If he whispered that in her ear and she was like, "Okay," but then it just kind of felt awkward and then the whole thing fell apart. All right. But if he didn't say that, and he just dropped her on his lap without any heads up about what's about to happen, that's a no-go. So, my thoughts.
For me, it was what he said. Like, I think in one of the vignettes, he said, "I had to do something to make some noise." Right? You in your mind knew that you were going to do something outlandish, something